What's going on, everybody? Welcome to BKB Podcast, episode number 8. Sonny and I are joined by a longtime friend of mine who's a wrestler, BJJ, and boxing practitioner, and he's a registered kinesiologist. I'm excited to introduce you guys to my good buddy, Billy Sahota. How you doing, man?
Good, man. It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to plan this for what, 5 months?
It feels longer than that, man.
Yeah, about there. Yeah.
So let's get cracking. So I got a lot of questions for you today. But what really got you started in terms of wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Because that's how we met for the first time, right? You showed up to Sutella's and I was a coach there. But you're like young buck. But what got you involved in wrestling and then jiu-jitsu, and then now I know you're kind of flirting with training and boxing a little bit.
Yeah.
So what got you started?
I think I was like 10 or 11 years old, and I was like to my dad, I want to wrestle. I don't know what got me into it. Honestly, it was UFC, and I used to watch videos, and I always used to hear like Joe Rogan and Goldberg say, "Oh, wrestling is the best base," and I was like, "I'm gonna do that." and my dad actually said no. He's like, "No." He's like, "You can't wrestle," and I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "They all do steroids." And when I was young, I was like, "Okay, what can I do then?" And he's like, "Go do karate," and I was like, "Okay, whatever." I'm pretty sure. See, I can't quite remember what got me into Sutella's doors. I think some people I knew went there, or correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you work out at the same gym as my dad? Something like that?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, you're right. Yeah. Because your dad used to come to Optimum Fitness and just kind of like train, and I didn't know that was the reason why he brought you there, though.
It might have been. I can't remember now either. I'm not quite sure, but he started taking me to Kyokushin karate there.
Yeah, I think it might have been that, man. I think you hit it on the head there, because I remember talking to him, like he would come around the same time as me, like a couple times a week.
Yeah.
And I would actually talk to him a little bit. So that could be it, man.
it was something like that. And then he took me to Sutella and I joined. And then from there, I was doing Kyokushin and a little bit of kickboxing whenever I could sneak into a class there. That was probably 10 or 11 years old. And then I think in grade 8 or 9, I started coming to jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. I started wrestling first, actually. I started wrestling the start of grade 9. You know what? Actually, I'm mistaken. It was so far back, I can't even remember. I think it might have been jiu-jitsu first. Mm-hmm. But it was a difference of a couple months.
Okay. This was at Hargobind Wrestling Club, right?
Yeah, Hargobind Wrestling Club. Probably, okay. Yeah, started in grade 9. And then, honestly, man, I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed combat sports, enjoyed wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and went with it. I would come home, dude, after practice, I'd come home, I'd be on YouTube looking at like jiu-jitsu moves, tutorial videos, wrestling techniques, all this stuff. You introduced me to, I think, flow wrestling, and I was on there, me and the account there, and I'd be watching all the flow videos. Yeah, I kind of just fell in love with it. And then started a little bit late. I was already in grade 9 when I started the grappling portion of my life. And but I went all the way in pretty much right away.
Yeah, I remember you're quite young, so like, and Ravi Paji was the one that got me on flow wrestling. He's like, "Hey, check this stuff out. You can watch some matches and stuff like that. They show techniques," because he was the one that was kind of like giving me advice on like, "Hey, you only come once a week. You're only gonna get so good at wrestling."
Yeah.
So he's like, you gotta study more.
He was one of the best coaches at breaking down technique as well, just breaking down technique and understanding like what his wrestlers' strengths are and what he wants them to do. He was like a master at that, man.
Yeah, we lost him too soon, but he was probably, in my opinion, he was the best coach that I had when it comes to wrestling, because you have a mixture of coaches. Some coaches are like, just go in there and wrestle hard, like show your strength type of thing. You know who I'm talking about when I say that too, right? Yeah. So, let's kind of segue more into, do you have any aspirations to compete again? Because I know you've been focusing more on the rehab therapy type of stuff, but are you gonna compete anytime soon?
It's funny, this question just was brought up to me by a friend of mine on Sunday, and my answer was hell no, man. Honestly, I have no aspirations. I have no aspirations to compete, because I feel like when I compete, and I think it was one of the reasons, or one of the things that held me back as well. I don't want to say perfectionist, but I overanalyzed way too much. And so when I was competing, I would overanalyze every little detail of a technique, of a sequence, to the point where I would almost like get, when it came time, I would sometimes get like, like paralysis by analysis. Like I'm just like, damn, like I'm supposed to be doing this so well. And that fear of not executing perfectly was holding me back. That's just who I am. And I feel like right now, if I were to compete, and no matter what it is, I would have to go back to obviously not the paralysis by analysis part, but going all the way in. And just with life, right? Just 27 full-time job, got a lot of responsibilities now. I don't think I can go all the way in and commit the amount of time I would like to. And then at the same time, I don't want to half-ass anything. I'm not the type of person to half-ass any sport and then go compete, because you never know, the guy you're competing against, that could be like all he has at that moment. Like he could be going all in and you're there half-assing. You're gonna get your ass kicked. So for me, it's like you gotta do it properly, you gotta commit. And the reason I won't compete right now is I just don't think I can commit the amount of time I would like, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Reason why is because I'm very similar. I remember when I would compete here locally, you would only hear of me competing maybe like once or twice a year. I wouldn't do very many tournaments. And then when we traveled to San Diego, everybody's like, yo, shut up and just compete with us. And we did like, in the span of 2 months, we did like 4 or 5 competitions.
Yeah.
So like, it's your environment too. If you're there by yourself and there's not people pulling you in to like, hey, let's just compete. Because there's a lot of people that are perfectionists. And sometimes they're like, you know what? I don't think I'm ready yet. I think I need a little bit more time. Unfortunately, that time you're never going to be like fully ready. You know what I mean?
No.
You always look for a reason like, oh, this technique's not firing well. My weight's not this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now how did that lead into kinesiology then?
Man, I think I used to get hurt a lot because I didn't know how to rest. I didn't know how to like if there was something aching. For me, it was like I started late, and every day I didn't train or practice was like a day lost to catch up to the other kids. So I was just always like, screw it, I'm gonna push through injuries. But I would get some bad ones. And I think this story, you've probably heard it a lot. Everybody that does kin, physio, RMT, like 9 out of 10 was like, yeah, I played this sport, I got hurt a lot, somebody helped me. But that's really how it was. And I just was interested in the human body. And for me, I was interested in like, what the hell do I got to do to not get hurt? What do I got to do to increase my longevity? And then I discovered that, oh, you could actually go to school for this. And that's kind of how I started. I think I got into it where I actually was like, I want to pursue this probably in grade 11, maybe.
Okay.
And then after that, I, step by step got into it, but that's what it was. I think I just got hurt a lot, and eventually I was like, shit, I also want to be someone that helps people like me that get hurt way too much.
Okay, so I know you used to get hurt a lot, because it would always be like you're gonna probably laugh because I always bring this story up when it's just us. So Sonny, I'm gonna tell you this story too, just pay attention to this. I used to go to a Hargobian wrestling club. This was when it shifted over to Newton, like the wave pool, like now that's Newton Rec Center, I think. Is it called the Ravi Sodhi mat room? Yeah. Before Ravi Paji was still alive. So Billy was coming to jiu-jitsu, but he's also doing wrestling. And I would always be like, yo, you should go wrestle. You gotta, he had like good talent for it too. And I remember walking in and he's in a wheelchair. Billy's in a wheelchair, right? But he's got an oxygen mask on. And so I'm like, yo, what the hell's going on? What happened, right? And he's so mad because he's like, dude, these guys keep putting it on my face. I don't need oxygen. My hip is screwed up, right? Or it could have been your knee. I don't remember.
It was my hip. It was my hip.
And you gotta imagine this. I'm walking in, getting ready to practice. He's in a wheelchair with a mat. Like it looked like he was on life support. Like that's how they had him set up, right? And to this day, man, I'm like you guys are both like very injury prone, because like you guys are two of my buddies that like Sonny will like tweak his ankle doing some random thing, not doing a 500-pound squat. It'll be like walking up the stairs, he'll tweak his ankle or his knee. You know what I mean? Whereas with Billy, it was more like he would get injured more or less with the sport. Like he would tweak something while he would be doing a technique or something like that, right?
I still remember that. So, but you know what it is? Those guys at Newton, they put the oxygen mask on any injury. It was like protocol for them. I remember one time we were warming up with a game of soccer, and one of the guys was playing barefoot. I don't know why. He didn't put his wrestling shoes on that day. He's playing barefoot, and he went to go kick, and one of the coaches, he ended up kicking the coach's shin, and his toe like dislocated.
Oh no.
And it was just his toe, and we called the first aid people, and they see his toe, like it was like the shape of an L. It was like an L shape.
Mm-hmm.
And they put the oxygen mask on it. He's like, what the fuck is this gonna do? I don't need oxygen. I need my toe put back in place.
Yeah.
I remember that was, so I was wrestling someone a little bit heavier, a little bit bigger. I shot in at a weird angle, and they kind of sprawled. I got crunched, and my hip, it was a hip injury. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was pretty bad. But yeah, I was like, why the hell is an oxygen mask on? I was so confused as well. I tried to take it off, and they were like, you have to keep it on. I was like, who the...
Actually, that's what happened. You took it off when I was walking in. You're like, taking it off. You're like, I don't need this. And the guy's like, no, you have... Like, he literally pulled it back down. Like, no, you have to keep it on.
Yeah.
And I was like, I actually was concerned at first. I'm like, holy shit, what happened to this guy, right?
Yeah.
And afterwards, you're like, dude, I hurt my hip. And I just burst into laughter. Like, I just couldn't stop laughing. Even when I was warming up, man, I was getting launched. I was just getting launched in there because I just kept thinking about that for like good 15, 20 minutes, man.
I remember that clearly as well. I was like, I remember that messed up my hip for like a couple weeks at least. It was a pretty bad injury.
Yeah. So
it's probably just protocol on their end, man, because like people end up with anxiety and everything, and breathing gets all over the place. At least you got proper oxygen coming in, and you're good. Right?
I'm pretty sure that's what they said. Like people panic and stuff.
Yeah. So like now for me, over the last 18-ish years, I've had a lot of therapy from we've already had Lucky on once for massage therapy, like to explain the registered massage therapy side of things. I go to physio. I've been through like a host of different things. Your approach is different than a lot of different kinesiologists, right? You're never talking in absolutes. Right? You don't say like, this is the way that this is going to fix this, that, or the other, whereas others may do that. Not all, but we did a lot of things like FRC, but then from FRC, you also did some active release stuff. So I guess my question is, what's different with your approach and your thought process when it comes to the whole treatment, kinesiology side of things and the rehab side of things?
I don't think it's, like, I'm not a pioneer of any sort, so it's not like this is different or like out of the norm. I just like to think that every injury is multifactorial. Like, a lot of injuries have many different components. Very rarely is an injury caused by one singular weakness or compensation, whatever you want to call it. So for me, I don't like to speak in absolutes for that reason. I like to say, yeah, this is your problem. For me, it's like let's assess not just where you're injured, but let's assess other areas, and let's see where your body's lacking, what it needs. It's more so, I want to say, I just like to cut the guesswork out and go by what your body displays. And so for that reason, I don't like to speak in absolutes. And I know we've worked on your body before, and I don't ever say like, this is what you have. I go, this is where I think it can be, but it can also be these things. I just think injuries are multifactorial. I think the body is pretty complex, and especially when you're dealing with athletes, whether it's somebody who lifts, runs, does a combat sport, whatever it might be, I think you put your body through a lot. And I think sometimes it's hard to believe, but the area in which is injured or where you feel pain, sometimes that's an after effect. There's another body part or another area. That's where you want to focus your time. That's what's messed up and is causing the pain to occur. And so for me, I like to try to find those issues. So I don't think it's necessarily a different approach. It's different compared to a lot of practitioners here. I have been told that by a lot of people. But for me, it's eliminating the guesswork. Always assess, and don't just assess the area where there's pain. Assess areas where you might feel there's compensation coming from, or maybe like a specific joint doesn't meet the prerequisites that you're putting on it. So yeah, for me, it's a comprehensive, holistic approach that I take, and a lot of people do tell me it's different, because I notice a lot of people when they get hurt, it's like, my shoulders hurt right here, and then the practitioner will only focus on this part right here. Whereas for me, I try to look at rotational capacity of the shoulder, what's going on the backside, what's going on with the pec, the lats. And so I think that's what makes it different. I try to look at the body as a whole and not just the area that's in pain.
Yeah, and I guess the other part is also like what we focused on was more so getting the full range of motion back under load, under with specific things. I'm not saying that you're doing that with every single person. Obviously, it's case by case based on what the patient needs. But I remember before when I'd get any kind of therapy done, it's like, okay, let's just get the range of motion back so you're not feeling pain. But there would be nothing even spoken about putting it under load, even though when we compete and we train and we wrestle and so on and so forth, it's under load, it's under resistance.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in load-based rehabilitation. Look, I'm not calling anybody out or making fun of anybody's treatments. I feel like you would have to hear their approach and their system before you say anything. But that's one of the reasons I'm against the whole 15-minute treatment. Like, you see some physios or some any practitioner, they do 15-minute treatments. And for me, it's like your job, and I know we'll get into this a little bit deeper, but to talk briefly about it, your job isn't necessarily to just treat that area of pain and act as a band-aid to the point where it's like, yeah, you feel better now. As a practitioner, as a therapist, your job is to educate the client first and foremost, right? Educate the client on what their body's capabilities are and what's going on. Now, that in itself, to create an environment of education, takes longer than 15 minutes. Then on top of that, I think load, right? Like sending a stimulus to your body is the only way to really trigger permanent change. Temporary change, sure, there's other ways to do it. But if we're talking permanent change, you got to have some type of load in there. And now if you talk about creating an environment for educating the client, and now you need to analyze what's going on, assess what's going on. You need to figure out how they're feeling that day. And then you need to use your knowledge of the human body and apply load in a scientific and effective way. I just don't see how it's possible to do that in 15 minutes. And for me, just the people who I kind of look up to in the rehabilitation world, they preach load and they preach taking your time, and they preach going off of what the assessment says. And yeah, I mean, for me, that's what stuck to me. So I've always followed that. Especially you brought up FRC, like functional range conditioning. Their whole system, it's called the functional range system. It's a great tool to have. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but it's a fantastic tool to have. And they firmly believe you have to acquire new range. Sure, acquire new range, but that end range, you got to teach your body and your neurological system how to handle load from there, right? I do it via isometrics. I love isometrics, but one way or another, you got to teach your body how to handle load at the end ranges if you want to get better. I believe it. It's been effective for me, so I try to preach that with all of my patients or clients.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense for sure, and I agree too. Like the cluster bookings and stuff like that, I'm not really. I don't really see how you can address certain. Like maybe you can address one topic or one area only, but majority of the time it's not just one other thing. It could be various different things that are attributing to that one weakness or injury, right? So I guess my next question going into it is, what's something about your field that you didn't expect going into basically into it?
It's a tough question. I think one of the things was the amount of problem solving that's involved in day to day. So when I program for a patient, you would imagine, or I used to imagine, that it's fairly simple, right? Like when you become familiar with a shoulder injury, all of them are kind of the same. I think one thing that surprised me when I started working, and more so when I started to gain like additional education, like taking, like seminars and going to workshops to learn from some reputable professionals in the industry, is that case by case, everything is different. Like somebody could be diagnosed with the exact same injury as another person, but the rehabilitation approach is completely different, right? Because those persons' day-to-day tasks differ, their job demands are different, their recreational activities require something different from their body. So I think for me, it was like when I was younger, when I was in school, it was always like, oh, if you know how to fix a shoulder problem, you're pretty good. It's a cookie cutter thing. It applies to everybody. And some people are like that. Like some practitioners, if they have a retired 75-year-old with a shoulder problem, like an anterior shoulder problem, and they have a 22-year-old athlete with an anterior shoulder problem, they will treat it the exact same, use the same exercises with the same rep ranges, the same time under tension. I don't think that's correct. For me, I think case by case, no matter what the injury is, it's different. Like you got to approach it in a different way. That to me was surprising. Like how many different ways you could. Again, I use anterior shoulder as an example, but you can use any body part. I was like, holy shit, man! There's a lot of ways to treat just that one injury.
Yeah, so it's almost like some people are just kind of following the textbook way versus actually looking at the individual, right? So I guess
you need a bit of both, and I think you're the one who brought this up to me. I remember a while ago when I was getting into lifting and stuff, you were like, man, it's really good when you follow people that have two things. They have the book knowledge, but it's not the end all be all. And then they have the personal, like they've been through it knowledge, right? And that's not the end all be all, but they find a synergy between the two. And you use John Meadows as an example, because that was who you told me to go watch. And he did that. And for me, I was like, okay, that's true. Like you want the best of both worlds. That's what I try to do.
I think that's important because the thing is, you might have the knowledge from the science and kind of like, what works from that aspect. But I'll tell you straight up, when you start using fancy words with the average person, they're kind of like, you lost me already. You kind of got to speak their language and explain like, okay, this is how we're going to do that. And I've learned that myself too, like with coaching and all that stuff, right? That you kind of got to use the same language to kind of explain it. But bridging the gap between that like super scientific knowledge to the average person and like what they can do. And this is perfect because this is kind of what I wanted to segue into is like, what are some things that maybe, because kinesiology isn't covered through a lot of the benefits policies as far as I'm aware. I know like with myself, kinesiology would be an extra add-on that I would have to put on, unless that's changing in the future, but I hope it does. What are some things that people can do that may not be able to maybe afford the treatment, or they wanted to, start to incorporate some things that maybe you would have them do, prior to like, because there's always situations with people like, I just can't afford it, unfortunately. Right. What are some, like, what's your top tip that you could give that somebody could do to kind of maybe help, for example, rehab a shoulder injury or a hip injury,
There's two things. Number one is, and this isn't just with rehab, this is with anything. YouTube is like a wealth of knowledge, right? Like you can learn a lot from YouTube. So the number one thing I would tell that person or those people is do a little bit of research on YouTube. Like find some people that are actually known to rehab that specific body part, or who are just respected people in the rehabilitation world, and watch some of their videos. For example, myself, when I was getting into like hypertrophy training, like the nitty gritty, like I want to learn the science of it. The first thing I did, because I was like, am I gonna hire a coach right away? Is there's two people who I watched and I learned a lot. It was John Meadows and Dr. Mike Israel. And for me, I established right away that they're respected people in the industry, and I watched their videos because they had a lot of content up. It was easily available. So that's number one. Number two, I think the second most important thing I would tell people is it's always good to stay moving, but listen to your body. I think the number one thing people do is, well, there's two things. Either they do absolutely nothing and they go, I'm just going to rest, or they go, fuck it, I'm going to push through. I think you got to find that middle ground. And so the one thing I would tell people is listen, like really listen to your body. Keep moving around and do whatever you can it is that doesn't cause pain. And that means limit range of motion. Like don't cut out exercise completely, just limit range of motion, limit volume, listen to your body. So do as much movement-based stuff as you can without triggering pain or discomfort. And if you do that, I mean, look, it's not going to magically fix your injury, but it's going to be way better off than people's initial instinct, which is I'm just going to rest in bed now for a couple of weeks. So one is just, listen to your body. And then the second is hit up YouTube. YouTube has a lot of valuable information, no matter what the field is.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's super important that point that you made, where basically the way I look at it is like athletes are the ones that you kind of have to get them to pull back because they're trying to pull through, like push through.
Yeah.
And the average person that's like, oh, I should just rest and not do anything. I remember we were talking about that. You're like, that's probably in your case one of the worst things that you can do. Just like sit there, do nothing, because essentially you're not even bringing bringing that area back to life, it's just going to heal, like not necessarily heal incorrectly, but it's not really going to help you in the rehab process. You're still going to have to go through the same stuff. So I think you nailed it perfectly there, man. I guess what's a common myth with kinesiology would be my next question.
Man, the biggest common myth, and I heard it when I was finishing up school, like when I was finishing my undergrad, is like, man, like a kinesiology is just basically like a rep counter, or they're essentially just personal trainers. The rep counter thing is a little bit ridiculous, and the whole personal trainer thing is they can also be personal trainers, but I think it goes deeper than that. And I think a lot of people, they have this misunderstanding of like, oh, this person's gonna, oh, and the other one is all they do is teach you stretches. That's a big one. That's a big one because some kinesiologists, that's all they actually do. They teach you a couple stretches. They do the same stretches over and over, and it's like, okay, are you better? No, I don't know what I did wrong. Those are the most common things that I hear, where I'm like, it's like they're like head scratchers. I'm like, I don't know about that, because to me, a kinesiologist's job is, I mentioned it a couple minutes ago, is to create an environment of education, educate the person on human movement, and specifically how their body moves. And then you add in tips and tricks on how to optimize that movement, right? And look, you can deep dive into it, and there's millions of very intricate ways of, pronounce that word wrong, but
all good. It's all good.
There's a lot of ways that you can improve performance beyond just stretching it, so I think those are like the most common myths, because I used to hear it all the time. I still do. I still hear it.
Was it more so from like things like kin stretch and stuff like that it came to be, or like has it just always been like that as a profession, where like those common myths were put in place?
It's always been. And the funny thing is, if you look at kin stretch and you actually look at what kin stretch is, the name is kin stretch, but their whole thing is about stretching, yes, but loading at end range. Like every single movement you do, if you were to ever do a kin stretch class, I've never done one, but I've seen them. I've seen a coach run his class through kin stretch before. Okay. Because it's also it's an FRS service, right? It's the same people that created FRC created kin stretch. And so kin stretch is actually very challenging and very load based, right? I just think it's always been there, though. I think the whole the myth of, kinesiologist is going to count your reps, they're going to show you basic cookie cutter exercises and a couple stretches. Unfortunately, I think that's what most of them do. I just think that's what most of them lack, the knowledge to dig a little bit deeper into the injury and into human movement and biomechanics, and that's what they do. And I think that's where it comes from. But it's a lot deeper than that. It's teaching the person what they're doing wrong, teaching the person how they're going to correct it, educating them on intervention methods that they can do at home as well as in the gym. It goes a lot deeper. And for a lot of people, those habit changes and those interventions that they do at home to kind of change how their body moves and functions, that's what makes a long-term difference. That's what causes them to slowly, week by week, decrease in pain, and their human function increases. It's that habitual change by adding in some movement day to day that they weren't doing before. So I think it goes deeper than stretching and counting reps.
No, that makes sense. And especially right now too, man, you're noticing a shift. I remember back in the day when myself and Sonny got started lifting, it was, you just do a couple sets of 20 and then you just kind of hit your workout. There was no such thing as any myofascial release or any kind of mobility work or anything like that. And now I'm noticing a massive change where there's a lot more priming and mobility based movements being done first to kind of get your body ready. And this is where I think, like, I was doing it prior because myself and Sonny had a mutual friend that used to be like, hey, you guys need to do this stuff because you guys are broken, right? Yeah. But then when we worked together, you were kind of saying the same thing. You're like, hey, you got to kind of find a place where you fit these movements in, because if you don't, you're probably just going to keep coming back to me with the same issues. Like, you were one of the, usually, like, for me, I could be wrong, but when somebody tells me like, hey man, like, my goal is to actually get you fixed, I don't want to have to see you every single day for the next like 2 years. You know what I mean? You were kind of like, let's do this, and when you need my help, give me a call. Versus some of the chiros that I used to see, they're like, yeah, let's get you booked in for the next 10.
Yeah, or let's do that.
Yeah, let's get like 10. Again, you know what? Like, to their credit, some are probably like, it's gonna take us about this much time, and we can obviously cancel if you're feeling better after 6 or 5 or whatever. But sometimes to me, it always like, I'm not trying to cast shade on anything like that, but it just always felt like a red flag. Like, okay, they just want the money here, right?
Yeah.
But
There's some good chiros out there, but there's some chiros that I've never seen or been to one where I'm like, I don't know about this person, but I've heard some stories of chiros that are basically, it's like rack 'em and crack 'em, walk in, pop, get out.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that, man. I've had those situations. That's why. So that's probably the one area where I haven't gotten a lot of therapy for chiropractic adjustments. Physio, kinesiology, RMT all day, right? I can see the value in there. Not saying that chiropractic adjustments can't help people. That's it was explained best to me from Jag Baines, right? He was telling me that he's like, it just depends on what the issue is, and it doesn't make sense to try to hammer a nail with a screwdriver, right? You got to use the right tool for whatever it is, right? So
there's some really good chiropractors out there, right? Like it's
absolutely.
not that all chiropractors are like that. There's a lot of very knowledgeable chiropractors who try not to milk your visits and are actually very effective with their treatment. So they're there. But yeah, I feel like it's the industry that has the biggest black eye because they have a handful of people who it seems like they just try to milk visits.
Yeah. I think that's with anything, right?
The biggest thing I noticed was going to chiro, physio, and everything with benefits. It was different. But as soon as I went under ICBC, it changed. Everything changed. Like the appointments went from telling the guy, hey man, this is out of my benefits, kind of paying out of your pocket, blah, blah, blah. And each session was a lot more detailed, where as soon as ICBC rolled in, it's like they just instantly like, oh, hey, don't worry, you got these many sessions, just come in. And you're just getting booked. And yeah, like you feel good going in, but there's nothing afterwards. It was either adjustment and then stick you on the decompression or whatnot, right? And then I recently ran into a physio now that I've been going where I go for RMT. He was actually a kinesiologist and completed his physio now. Now he's a physiotherapist, but he does both. And that's what I realized was the combination, because he takes a lot of the depth details from kines that he's learned over the years of the active rehab and all that, mixed with the passive and everything. Like I think that's the best combination, because I've like you, JT, saying, we've gone through people, you go in, just stick you with some needles, IMS, this and that, and you feel good. You're like, okay, that's all they're looking for. If you give them a little bit of a green light that, like, you moved positive towards looser muscles or whatnot, and in their eyes, they've kind of fixed the issue. But it's like, it doesn't fix anything, because next time you go bench or do anything, you're in the same spot.
100%. I agree with that. I think a lot of practitioners, I don't know what it is about ICBC, because it doesn't mean the person's not hurt. Like they're still
exactly
right. But when they see ICBC, the treatment quality decreases. I've heard of stories of kins through just patients and even friends of mine that have done sessions, physio and kin, and they're like collectively like we'll do physio kin back to back at whatever clinic it might be, and they're like we're in and out in like 20 minutes.
That's
and
crazy.
I'm like, how is that possible? How is that possible that you think you got good quality treatment and you were in and out in 20 minutes?
Yeah.
I think also, man, like each person is different. So at this stage in my life, I got to look at people that if you're going to do therapy, but you're like a guy that's never lifted weights before, I don't know if you understand what we put our bodies through. Like, I remember talking to my doctor about some of the things we did during a leg workout, and he's like, that's insane. Like, you guys do that type of stuff? He's like, I thought you just did, 4 sets of 10 here, 4 sets of 10 there. I'm like, no, we're doing like 50 rep drop sets. And so that's why, like, when I talk to somebody, especially a clinician, it's kind of like, have you done something even comparable to what I do? So it's kind of easy for us because you've wrestled, you've done jujitsu, you've done boxing, you've lifted weights. So I look at those things. Now, I might be unique in that sense. Not everybody looks at that. I bet you a lot of it is like, who's close to me? There's a percentage of people that are like, who's local to me, right? For me, though, I would always travel like, oh, this person's a top guy, that person's a top guy. So basically, I mean, that was one of the reasons why we linked back up again, because I'm like, man, this guy's going to understand, like, hey, I got put in a Kimura, my shoulder kind of got tight. then you're like, okay, cool. I understand the muscles that are involved with that because you've been in that position before. So I guess like now I do have some friends, I do have some family that are kind of flirting with the idea of like, okay, I want to get into the rehab field. So what is like your one piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring, maybe physiotherapist, kinesiologist, like, what would you kind of give them in terms of advice for that?
It's a good question. Off the top of my head, I think the first thing that came to my mind, and I think it's the most important, is if that's what you want to do with your life and that's a career that you choose, make sure you're doing it because you actually want to make a difference in someone's life. Like you actually want to better someone's life, right? You're looking to make an impact, make a change, and help someone live a better life, move better, perform better, right? Go to work without pain, do day-to-day activities without pain. I hear a lot of people, like especially young people, and I hear this conversation sometimes in you know with my younger cousins and stuff, and they go, "Oh, I'm gonna do physio, I'm gonna do cardio, so much money in that," and I kind of laugh because to me it's like, yeah, you want to be compensated. Money is it's a big deal, right? Like you want to be able to support yourself and support a family. You want to be compensated for what you do and the years of schooling that you went through. But this is something where more than that, you want to actually go to work thinking like, I'm going to make a difference in someone's life today and help people move better, right? Help them achieve some goals and help them live pain free. I know too many people that have got into this field because they saw dollar signs and they saw money. And the problem is at that point, you treat it like a business and you treat it too much like a cookie cutter job. And now the patients are no longer patients to you. The patients are dollar signs. And for me, it's like ethically and morally, if you're getting involved in the rehabilitation game, do it because you actually want to help people. Funny enough, when you actually care about people and you help people, the money will start to come. But make sure that the founding reason that you get involved is because you want to help people, you're interested in the human body, and you have a passion to help increase movement, quality of movement, not just the financial side of things, because that's when you're going to find yourself, not all the time, but you're going to find yourself being the questionable practitioner that pre-books people in for 12 to 15 visits because you see them as a dollar sign. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to do that. You're going to start to hate your job, and people talk, right? Like people are going to say that guy sucks. So that would be the first thing I tell people. Like just make sure you want to do it. Make sure you're passionate about the part of helping people, not about the getting paid part. That part will come.
Mm-hmm. I'm huge on that. The cream always rises to the top eventually. You know what I mean? So like prior to myself getting started in the whole coaching and personal training stuff, I'd already been doing it for like the 15 years that I was doing jiu-jitsu. People are like, hey man, I got to cut weight for this weight category. Can you help me out? I remember there was like an amateur boxer. He came to me and he's like, bro, I got to cut weight. And they didn't even tell me I had to cut weight for this fight. And he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I literally would be like, okay, cool. Like eat this, this, and this. And this is how we're going to, sauna cut this much. And you got to weigh in this day. And then you got to rehydrate. Right. And this was back during the Pedialyte days where it was basically like you sauna cut and then you weigh in the night before. And then you just rock Pedialyte for the first little bit and then get food back in your system. Right. So anyways, now we're going to get into the kind of speed round portion. It's kind of a speed round, but we kind of want good explanations. I think Sunny's gonna take over from here and ask those questions. Basically just hammer them out as quickly as you can. But if you want to elaborate on anything, feel free to do so.
Let's do it.
Ready?
Yep.
So who would your top 3 most influential people be in your life and why?
I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't think I have anybody who off the top of my head I say, well, I look up to and they influence me a lot. I just don't.
Yeah.
I hate to sound like an asshole, but I've always been pretty self-motivated in whatever I do. Right? Whether it was sports growing up. Like my dad was always just like, wrestle if you want to wrestle. I'm here to support you and go ahead. And if you want to stop, go ahead and stop. So for me, it was self-motivated, and even then getting into this field, it was self-motivation. So influential people,
or even let's rephrase it. Let's say people that either inspired you or had a big impact on either in your wrestling or in your professional career.
Well, professional career, influential people? Well, I think the part of just kind of being good at something and then having your own business so that you can excel and practice how you want to practice. Probably from like older cousins and uncles that are business owners and have always preached about like kind of just owning your own business and being your own boss, being your own leader, and but being good at it, right? Like doing something because you want to do it out of the goodness of your heart. So probably some family members, but I'll be honest, man, like I don't think I have too many people who like influence me. Like I'll be honest, growing up when I started jiu-jitsu and wrestling, like JT was probably an influential factor in why I started to grapple and kept grappling. That's 100%. And then there's some coaches along the way, but to narrow it down to three, I don't think three particular people had the most effect. It was just a bunch of people that all equally influenced me.
Yeah, I struggle with the same question. I actually was asked this recently too, and I just and I thought about it and I was like, I can't give an answer because I've picked and chosen so many things out of so many people around me that have influenced me, but like I can't narrow it down to one person to give credit.
Yeah.
There's so many people that I've taken or have poured into my life that you just take all of it and combine it into what works for you.
Yeah, see, I'm on the same boat as that. I agree.
Yeah. Next question. If you read books and you're a reader, what would you say your top 3 books would be that you would recommend to people and why?
Well, I haven't read a book probably since like grade 11.
Podcast then. Let's hear the podcast.
You know what? The last book I read was probably the Eddie Bravo rubber guard book that you gave me. And that was 90% pictures.
I handed him the book and he asked me like a couple questions about rubber guard and stuff like that. I think it was spiderweb, which was like that armbar position. I'm like, here's a book. Read the book. It's in there.
Yeah, that's probably the last book I read.
That was like was it the Lou Ferrigno book you gave me?
Oh yeah.
And the Lou Ferrigno book, I read it, bro. In the entire book, this guy full on denied steroids, right? He said it's all natural.
It was demonized. It was demonized at the time of writing that book.
Yeah, I came to the gym for weeks, next level motivated. Like I was just like ready to fuck shit up. And this guy's like, you do know that like he's lying, right? I'm like, bro, like what you shouldn't have said that. Like who knows what I want to get, just like
or you could
man, look at Lou Ferrigno. That guy's 100.
I know. As I'm reading the book, I'm like, he's lying, and then I'm like, but what if, right? Like I ran with that. It was a reality check, man. I was like, oh, fuck. Is there any local fighter that we should keep an eye on?
Local fighter, yeah, man. There's a bunch. There's a lot of local talent. So he's a good buddy of mine. I go to his gym, but I also have the privilege of doing some rehabilitation work on him whenever he needs it. Benit Bisla. Yeah. He's a pro boxer, undefeated, bright future, bright career. Right now he's in training camp with David Benavidez, who if you don't know, he's like 25-0, like 2-time world champ boxer. Like he was supposed to fight Canelo, and a lot of people think he's gonna beat Canelo. Like David Benavidez is legit, and for David Benavidez to invite Benit out to his camp and actually be like, yo, I want you here. He's like, I want you here. Like Benit guys went down one time to go do sparring, and afterwards the guy's like, I want you here. And so he has a very bright future. The dude's talented. And then I think that they have a whole army of young guys who have a very bright future. We got my buddy Kiko Harkira Niger. He's there as well. Yeah. He's actually going right now to nationals, and hopefully, God willing, he wins and gets selected for the Canadian national team. But he's an Olympic hopeful. And they got a couple more guys. Gavin Bisla, Benit's younger brother, same thing. Talented fighter, won provincials this year, at nationals right now, Olympic hopeful. Manraj Danoa and Dalaur Danoa, they're two brothers. Nice. For them. Yeah, these guys are all very talented. They in my opinion, they have a bright future ahead of them. So them for sure. Off the top of my head, for local fighters,
is Eric's doing quite well now too, right?
Yeah, I don't know Eric personally all that well. I see him around when he does come to Bisla, but like I don't know him on like the basis of where I can have a conversation with him. But I'm a big boxing fan, so I follow boxing, and so I believe he's like 3-0 as a pro now. I want to say, I'm not 100% sure, and He's looked pretty good all 3 fights, like really good. He's a talented fighter as well. He has a bright future too.
He's very
He's a
young
local
too,
kid.
man. He's very
Yeah,
young.
yeah. He's a local kid as well. It's good to see local kids make it to that level. And
Mhm.
then there's a lot of young wrestlers. There's always a lot of young wrestlers in the community that have bright futures.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of young wrestlers up and coming as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite wrestling? Sorry, who's your favorite wrestler, grappler, and or MMA fighter?
Like, you want one for each or just in general?
Yeah, let's do one for each since you've kind of trained in each discipline, right?
Okay. For wrestling, I watch a lot of wrestlers. I used to watch wrestling here like all day. For me, the wrestler that I used to probably watch the most, and the reason being, I tried to emulate my style after him. He was a left leg lead. I was a left leg lead. Both kind of lanky for the weight class. His name's Jordan Oliver. Now, he never broke out on that world level. Like, he's not like an Olympic gold medalist or world champion or anything like that. But he's a talented wrestler. He's been on like Team USA several times, NCAA champ. So he's a pretty decorated wrestler and very slick. So I used to watch him a lot. With that being said, man, I used to watch a lot of wrestlers. You got him.
I swear, I thought you were gonna say Bouvier Sativ.
I was about to say, if you didn't interrupt me, I was about to say, I know you're a big Saitiev guy. So I remember back in the day, you would show me his videos. I never see, for me, like when I used to watch wrestling, I would need to like appreciate the wrestler's style. No, don't get me wrong, Saitiev's style is great, but he would look all like, lazy and lackadaisical. They hit you with some slickness, and for me, I would watch it, but it wasn't something where I was like, oh man, I want to watch all of his videos and emulate it. The other guy that I watched a lot was John Smith. Especially when I was a lot lighter, because I used to like low ankle shots and like attacking the elbow, like elbow pulls and stuff. And he's a wizard at it. So I used to watch a lot of John Smith. Funny enough, Jordan Oliver was coached by John Smith throughout his collegiate and a couple of years of his senior career. So anything along that kind of coaching tree, I used to enjoy watching. Grappling, I haven't watched grappling in ages. But when I used to watch grappling, and this is way back. I used to watch a lot of Marcelo Garcia, obviously.
Yeah, but he's one of the best, man.
He was
of all
the
time.
guy. Yeah. So I used to watch a lot of him, and then I used to watch a lot of.
Man, it's kind of shitty for Marcelo because I think there's some information came out that he's dealing with some stomach cancer right now.
Oh shit! Really?
It's rough, man. That guy's one of the nicest people. One of the nicest people you're gonna meet in the industry. Period.
Yeah, he's a legend, man. That guy was like, he was a small dude, or at least he looked small in the videos. And dude, he was like choking out some of the biggest guys and like talented big guys too, not just big guys, like talented.
The
big
best
guys.
Of the best of the best.
Yeah. He was slick. I used to watch a lot of Marcelo because he was really good at what was it, X guard? He had X guard, right?
Yeah.
I used to love X guard when I was young and I did jits. I used to love X guard. So a lot of Marcelo. In today's day and age of grappling, I don't really watch too much submission grappling or jiu-jitsu. So I don't have somebody who I regularly.
You could leave it at Marcelo, man. Nobody's gonna hate you on that one, man.
Yeah.
What about MMA fighter?
MMA fighter of all time or currently?
Just your favorite MMA fighter, period.
Let me segue quickly into boxing because I'm a big boxing fan. So for boxing, it's my two favorite fighters are gonna be Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Andre Ward. So those two are guys who I probably watched all their fights.
Okay.
MMA. See, I'm a big fan of MMA, but I'm not like a huge fan of a single fighter. You know what? Like my favorite fighter to watch right now, and again, like it's just because he's very well rounded. And if I were to ever get into MMA, I would try to have a similar style to him as Robert Whittaker at 185. He's just very well rounded and always good discipline, shows up with a good game plan, and has no glaring weakness. So I like Robert Whittaker. In terms of all-time MMA fighter, tough to say, man. I'd really have to think on that one. Probably, to be honest, when GSP was fighting, I used to always cheer against him. I was always like, screw this guy, screw this French guy. Dude, I used to like. I remember the Nick Diaz fight. I was going for Nick. I remember the who else was it? There was a couple of GSP fights where I was cheering against him, but then afterwards, watching his what he accomplished and rewatching his fights and just seeing how dominant he was and how, like, dude, the guy's fights were like masterpieces. Like, game plan was on point, his execution was on point, no weaknesses, whether it's a physical component or a tactical component. He was on it. So GSP probably. But
Okay,
back
cool.
then, like old me, like if you asked me 10 years ago, I would be like, fuck GSP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that a couple of my cousins are the same way. They're like, because he comes off as a boring fighter, but if you don't understand the fighting, you don't understand the game, you'll say that. But if you understand everything that goes into a game and a fight, you're looking at him like, wow, that's pure art, man. Like,
Yeah, like I think even for people that understand what's going on in there, it still wasn't. There were some fights that were like quite boring, but you know, think about it. We're talking about a big payday. It's your title's on the line. You know, more often than not, people are not going to take those risky chances and lose their belt. And he fought strategic fights, but you know, like I can agree. I remember back in the day, I'm like, oh man, I wonder who he's going to lose to. Like, I believe that he lost to Hendricks, right? And
Yeah.
that was like, you know, he got the nod, but he's still on like that top 5 list for me for sure. Now, I want to be respectful of your time. We're kind of at that 1 hour mark, but
It's I got some time. I got some more time.
okay, cool. Let's just do like maybe one more. Sonny, you want to do one more question?
JT, even like 15 more minutes,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Like 15, I should be good. It'll yeah, it should be okay.
what's the
Okay.
question you got to ask everybody? Let's get that in there for sure. What's your favorite cheat meal?
Over the last little while, man, every meal's been a cheat meal. I put on some pounds.
If I don't hear from him, something's going on.
Yeah. I put on some real weight. If I were to show you progress pics right now, you'd be like, dude, what the hell did you do? I think when I was on point, dude, honestly, like just pizza, pepperoni pizza.
I remember you saying you're like just a good pizza. That's it.
Yeah, pepperoni pizza. But I like for me, it was like the dessert was where I did the damage.
Yeah.
Right. Like for me, like ice cream and pie. I remember a long time ago when I was went on the meal plan. Like I think me and JT had like a 30-minute phone call talking about like where you could get good ice cream and good pie. Right. Like for me, the sweet stuff after the pizza is where I did the damage.
Yeah.
So we both had this like phase, you know, when you're in dieting phase, you just like hyper focus on certain foods. So me and Billy hyper focused on pie. And I think it was like Pie Hole is in downtown.
Yeah.
That was the place that we were like
Yeah.
talking about going to for like weeks.
There's that one, and there's another place in US too that's mainly on what is it, Canada Way in like Edmonds, kind of. There's a pie place there. It might be the Pie Hole too. Those are another like pretty big pie shop there.
Sonny, you gotta get the name, man. You gotta get the name here.
I'll get the.
I gotta go there like after this interview. I'm gonna go after the podcast. I'm there.
And then while Sonny's looking for that, how about you tell us, because you're very, you know, you might not be reading a lot in terms of books, but I know you do listen to a lot of podcasts. So what's your favorite podcast and why do you know, because I know there's like a mix. There's a Huberman, there's a Rogan, there's this, there's that, but what's your favorite one?
Lately, I'll be honest, you know, football season has been going on. I'm a big 49ers fan, you know, and I'm proud of the team, but I listen to a lot of 49ers podcasts. So my favorite one would be there's two guys. I just like the way they break down football. I like the way they break down the team. It's the Haberman and Middlecoff podcast. I'll probably listen to like every episode. It's like a football podcast. So right now I probably listen to that one the most just because I like their insight and what they have to offer. They always break things down in a very easy to follow way.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of football, recently podcasts that I've been listening to, not many. I don't know. Maybe give me a couple months. We'll revisit that question because right now, yeah, no books, no podcasts. It's been football and football.
So the football podcast and just the sports podcast in general, they kind of blew up as of recently. I remember before they weren't a big thing. Now, was it the guy from Golden State Warriors? What's his name, Green or something like that, that started it all, where he started to do his own podcast, but rather than just talking about general life stuff, they actually started to break down the games, and people
I
actually.
can't remember who started it, but no, you're right. It was. I know there's a couple big NBA ones now because a lot of retired players will start podcasts and they're really fun to watch. I don't watch that many NBA ones. I'll be honest. I kind of just stick to football. You know.
Okay, so
The place is actually called Pie Hole.
oh, it is Pie
See?
Hole.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
It's in Burnaby on 6th Street.
okay, so I thought I'd share this as well, get a little bit of is Instagram the best way to reach you, Billy? Or
Yeah, Instagram would probably be the best way to reach me. And then I work out of a clinic that I contract with. It's called Vertex Performance. So you could always call their front desk to get a hold of me or get an appointment with me as well.
okay, so yeah, this is the page here. It's Breakthrough Kinetics is one of his. So it's THRU Kinetics. You can kind of look at some of the stuff that you're not the one running this one though, right? You have somebody working on this for you.
Yeah. So as of late, probably the last like 6 weeks or so, I've had one of my friends who's keen on social media and kind of aspires to have like a digital marketing company. He took the reins and he's been handling the page. He's been doing a good job as well. But yeah, that's my personal page. For me, I never like to have myself plastered, pictures of myself and my name and stuff like that. I know JT, like we're similar in that sense. Like we do things because we truly want to do things, and it's not to get like social media credit. And so for me, I said, like, even though it was just me, it's not like Breakthrough Kinetics is a team of people, or one day it might be, but it's just me. But I didn't want to have like just my name plastered there, so I created like a kind of like a name for my kinesiology profile, my kinesiology work. And then oh yeah, that's me grappling Lovato. That guy is strong, man. He is so strong. Like he's ridiculously strong.
This is a high caliber wrestler too. So this is Jesse. This is Podla.
That's Nick Ogwala. So
that's what it is. Yeah,
well. Yeah.
I remember him.
Dude. Lovato, that dude this is like right before he beat Musasi as well. This was like when he started the Musasi camp.
Yep.
Dude, the guy was like freakishly strong, and and the pressure was unreal.
But you also trained with him like you weren't training at the time. You just kind of went in.
I literally I was not training. I think I hadn't stepped foot on a mat in ages. I was coaching wrestling at the time, and we got a call that Rafa Lovato's here. He wants to train with some wrestlers, and so I went, and yeah, I got my ass kicked a little bit. But honestly, like I can go and say I got my ass kicked by like a legitimate world champion.
Yeah, it's I think the last time I trained with Lovato was like in 2009. When they were getting ready for ADCC. I didn't get a chance to roll with them after that. So once again, guys, this is Breakthrough Kinetics. We're going to have this all labeled in the show notes or in the description when we post it, but you're also working out of Vertex Performance now as well, right?
Yeah. So that page is under construction. So the clinic used to be called Viva Rehab. We recently rebranded. It's called Vertex Performance. So even as you can see on Instagram, like Viva Rehab is still what the signage is, like if you look at the post. But again, the same person who's running my page, well no I mean on the Vertex Performance page,
on here, yeah, right here,
if you look at the post, it says Viva Rehab, right? The company was called Viva Rehab for a really long time. Recently we decided to rebrand. So for me, I'm there 5 days a week. I basically handle all the kinesiology work out of that clinic. So if you're going to Vertex and you want kin related work, I would be the one that you come to. We have a chiropractor on staff, really good chiropractor, Dr. Strand. He's the owner of the practice. He's been working as a chiropractor for 16 years, I want to say, maybe a little bit more than 16 now. And he's really good. He's one of the chiros that actually will take his time in the assessment and try to educate you on what's going on, not just rack them and crack them, right? We have an RMT and we have a physio on staff part-time, but soon to be full-time, hopefully. We also have a very good speech therapist as well that specializes in in working with kids with autism and like speech disorders. And then we have a clinical counselor. So we're trying to make it very holistic. We're trying to make it, something almost like a one-stop shop where we cover a lot of different health-related aspects. And then for me, I just took Breakthrough Kinetics, took it from my old office, and then went there. Me and Dr. Saran had a similar vision. Our philosophies generally matched, and the way we kind of conduct business in rehab was very similar. Most importantly, I think our visions aligned for where we wanted to take our independent practices. So I decided, he's a very respectable guy, has been around for a while, been doing this thing for a while. So went there, and I'm working out of that clinic now. So I handle all the kinesiology out of Vertex. The Breakthrough page is still there for, honestly, might dabble into not personal training, but some other services I'm thinking about, right? Like I'm just brainstorming ideas.
I think you should. I think you should.
Yeah. I'm dabbling. Yeah. And so within the next couple months, I'll probably offer some additional services. And also, man, I just didn't want my name plastered everywhere. This way, Breakthrough Kinetics kind of becomes a brand of its own, instead of just my name being out there. But yeah, Breakthrough Kinetics is kind of my company that I started up, and I'm contracted out by Vertex Performance. So if you're looking for, kinesiology, active rehab, you're looking for physio or chiropractic treatment, you can hit up Vertex. The kinesiology and ICBC stuff, I handle that. So if you've been in a car accident, a lot of people don't know, but if you've been in a car accident, literally the day you get your claim number, for the next 3 months, you're pre-approved for 12 visits to come see me, fully covered, fully directly billed to ICBC. So I do that out of there. I offer FRC mobility training. I offer myofascial decompression, which is cupping. And then usually what I try to do is pull everything together. So when you come and see me, the first session is obviously an assessment, but afterwards you'll see a little bit of soft tissue work, a little bit of cupping if necessary, some FRC work, and some classic strength training, right? And so I try to mix everything together so you get like a very comprehensive treatment.
Perfect, man. Yeah, man, it's been a blast. This is good to catch up. Finally got it in. Sonny, you got any questions? Anything left for Billy?
No, I'm good, man.
Well, man, thank you very much for taking the time, bro. Totally appreciate it. A long time coming.
Dude, it's been, we should have got this done a while ago. I think I'm to blame because my schedule was a little bit chaotic, but I'm glad we got it done.
No, man, it's always a pleasure, and man, like I said, it was awesome.